Hello and welcome back. In the last lesson, we added this theme provider context to our application, and it provided access to these couple of values, dark, a boolean, and setDark, which was the setter function. We saw how whenever the context value changed, app content re-rendered, it grabbed the value of dark and changed the darkness of the UI accordingly. Now, there was one small deficiency in this code, and that is that dark was always initialized to the value false, which meant that whenever the application started up, it was always light. And what we're going to do in this lesson is remedy that. Every time dark changes, we'll save it to what's known as local storage. And then when the application starts up, we'll read the local storage and get their previous value. So to do that, I'm going to use something called local storage, which if you haven't come across it before, let me just show you. Over here, I've Googled set item, and over here, I've Googled get item. So let's look at set item. Set item is a function call where you give it a key name and a key value. They're both strings. And it provides an example. We say local storage, set item, background color, red. And then over here, get item retrieves the value. So we can say local storage, get item, background color. Clearly it corresponds to this over here. And it will read back the value and current color will be no doubt red. So with that, let me put this away and we'll set about implementing that in our code. Now, to start with, I'd really like a separate interface to contain dark like this. So because this is the value that I'm actually going to be saving. So what I'll do is I'll remove dark from this interface and instead I'll say it extends theme context data like this. So now theme context value hasn't changed. It contains both properties setDark and dark, just as before, but I also have this new interface, theme context data, which contains just the value and not the setter function. And with that, I can now write a couple of functions which will save and retrieve the value in this interface. So let me just do that. I'll place it down here. And the first function I'm going to write is save context. I can close this down now. So here we can see the function save context takes a parameter called context data, which is of type theme context data, which is an object with a single property dark. And we call local storage set item. The key name is dark and the key value is either true or false, depending on the dark property of context data. Very similarly, here I'll paste in a load context function, and this time it doesn't take a parameter, but it returns one of type theme context data, this object here again. And the way it works is it calls local storage and it asks for the value of dark, which will either return true or false. And if it's true, then dark will be true, and vice versa. And then it returns an object with a property called dark, and the value is the value in this variable here. Now, because these two are the same, dark colon dark, in JavaScript we can actually condense this to just dark like this, and this is normal JavaScript programming. We collapse the two into one. So this should all work just fine. We just need to use them. So down here, rather than initializing with false, we can now load the context and then just access the dark property. So that will provide us with an initial state. Every time dark changes, we want to save down the new value. So the way we react to state changing is we call useEffect. And I'll just import that from React. And as hopefully you'll remember from our tutorial on React, this takes a function which is called every time something in the dependency list changes. And it also takes a dependency list. into which I'm going to place dark. So this function will get called every time dark changes, and all I need to do is to save my context. So let me just paste something into his. So here you can see I said save context. I'm saving an object where dark is set to the value dark, which of course is this state variable up here. And again, I can use the JavaScript little trick for condensing these into a single item, and JavaScript will understand what that means. So that is everything we need to get this working. So let's have a look at that running. I'll just open a terminal. I'll do npm run dev and then pop up the web browser. I'll close the terminal and I'll open the developer tools. And if I go to this application tab over here, we'll see it gives us access to the storage. So if I just open this, I'll click on the web page we're at, localhost 5173, and you can see that dark has been set to false. So this was saved as part of the application startup. This useEffect will be called when the application first renders, as well as every time dark changes. So that's initialized our value dark to false. And now if I toggle the value of the button, we can see it's flipping between true and false. And what's really great is if I just go to google.com. So I've abandoned that web page, but now I return to it. It restores the value false. But if I'm dark and I go to Google and then I return to the web page, we can see it restores with the value true. So that's all working beautifully. So with that, I will close this lesson and I'll see you in the next.